Hello everyone, welcome back to RetroComs. The results are in and it looks like Nokia gets to go next. I have more of these than I initially thought, and they are a legendary device manufacturer. Let's get into it and see what innovations they have made through the years. First up, we have this Nokia 5120. I have its original box right there. It kind of looks like an old house phone, but that was a typical design for phones in the mid to late 1990s, where I think this one is from. Let's see if we can find a date of manufacture on this box anywhere. You guys can look at that, see if there's any information there that can be obtained. We look at the back. I love how descriptive these phone boxes at the time were. There's more data over here. Up next, we have this Nokia 3510. I don't think I have a battery in this one at the time, but it does work. Nice blue and orange case here. A lot of these Nokias had interchangeable faceplates. You could switch out the buttons. You could switch faceplates if you wanted a different color. Very neat design for back in the day, and gave it a lot of customization for what some considered to be very basic phones at the time. And in comparison to, say, Motorola, Samsung, or LG, yes, these were more basic devices. But nothing wrong with a phone that just calls and texts, and does so reliably and will survive a fall if the worst happens. And here is the 3510i. It is the next one in line after that 3510, I do believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not quite sure if I got these laid out chronologically correct or not. Again, basic design, little coaxial charging port down there. Now, something to note with these Nokias, most of them have a power button up on top here. So if you've been collecting old phones, haven't noticed it yet, but have been trying to power these Nokias up by pressing the end button over here, that's not the way it's done. It's this power button up here. If this phone had it present, sadly, this one is lost to time. Maybe one day I'll be able to find another that fits. Next up, we have the 3587. It seems to be a bit slimmer. It does have an external antenna here that can be extended and retracted back into the case. Nice feature at the time. I believe this one is on Alltel, if I'm not mistaken. Neat little transparent sides. You guys know how I feel about transparent technology. Love the late 90s, early 2000s aesthetic with the clear plastic, and you could see some internal components in there. There's its battery. I think I see its main board in there. Neat design. Up next, we have the 3360. It does kind of remind me of the 3310 with just the way that this housing is shaped, which we'll come to our version of the 3310 later, but you can just look at them side by side and compare that they are a very similar shape and design. The way you can tell them apart is, one, this one is considerably thicker, and two, the keypad is laid out a bit differently. But they are strikingly similar, as their model numbers may imply. Up next, we have the 1100 on TracFone. It's a pretty basic entry-level device. Interesting choice by Nokia, putting the power button right here on the keypad. That's odd to have it as its dedicated button here, but I know some Sony and Motorola handsets did that as well, but they went away from putting it up here for this model for some reason. It's very compact, very basic device, but I'm sure it got the job done effectively. Next, we have the 6610. This one is a bit worse for wear. I believe this one was on AT&T. Again, simple, compact, durable design here. I'm not sure if the faceplates on this one could be changed, but it does appear that they could. Again, their design language at this time was pretty much a sentiment of if it's not broken, no need to fix it. They did make their little revisions, as you can see, but kept very consistent. You can look at any of these phones just about and know instantly that is a Nokia device. Up next, the 6016. A bit thicker. Power button up top. External antenna that can be extended, if I can do that with one hand. Most of them don't have this, but a couple of them do. It is on Sprint. Interesting that both of the CDMA devices that I have that antenna. I haven't noticed that with the GSM devices. That might be something for me to look into later. This is the 6010, I believe. 6010. I'm not quite sure how you would call these model numbers, but since the legendary is the 3310, I've stuck with that convention. Similar design here, and most of these take these little coaxial chargers. Pretty easy to find the chargers for those. Some have headphone jacks, some have little terminals that they can be docked into a cradle. This one still has its protective cover over the Nokia logo back here. Overall, it's in pretty good shape, minus a few little scuffs on the screen. This one might have seen quite an easy life. Here's the 2600. It got pretty scuffed up and dinged up. On AT&T, coaxial charger. No cameras on any of these so far either. Some of them you could Bluetooth images to or send them an MMS, I think, but most of these, their functionality was quite basic. Over here, the 2610. I have its box there, complete with manual and charger. It's on AT&T. Mine is a bit of soft touch degradation. Not quite to the point that it is disgusting to the touch, but it's to the point that it is noticeable. It is in pretty good shape. Again, all of these are in working condition if they have a battery that is inserted and charged enough to power them on. Next up, we have the Nokia 1600, another compact little device. If I were to have put these in chronological order, it might belong up here before the 2600. I'm not quite sure. Definitely more entry level, even for these devices. It's a pretty basic little phone. Nothing wrong with that, though. I'm sure it served its user very well during its time. Here we have the 2323 on AT&T. Neat little design here. Again, kept it light, kept it basic, kept it a design that probably wouldn't break easily. Same coaxial port there, I think. This one, they initially did have a flap to protect this port, but of course, as with most phones with those little charging flaps, that flap is lost to time as well. Here we have the 6061. This is a rare sight. We don't see many flip phones for Nokia. They stuck to these candy bar style devices with no flip, no slide, nothing too crazy going on. But this appears to be a competent flip phone. Down at the bottom of the device, we see that same coaxial port. A lot of these do share the same charger. An interesting design here, and you'll see that as we go forward how well they kind of carry over the designs to the back of the device. It's a neat feature they have. And I can't remember if this one has an external display under here or not, but if it does, they did a good job hiding it. Next we have not one, not two, but three of these 6350s. This one in gray, and these two in this lovely shade of red. I think these were very lightly used. And as you can see, the hinge does not protrude out of the back of the device. It's fairly flush right here. Now the soft touch on this gray one is starting to degrade a bit. The red ones might be soon on their way, but it isn't too bad. Should have cleaned these screens first. Also probably need to get the little foam inserts to go in there because these upraised keys can sometimes wear into the screen of the phone. It's just another one of those things, as they're closed, as time passes, or perhaps with repeated closure, that can be a problem for these devices going forward. Next up we have the 6555B. Not sure if this came before or after, but note it too has that same feature where the hinge does not protrude out of the back of the device, where it's flush almost back here. That little design carries over from the front to the back. I'm sure this made it much more comfortable to talk on for some, but that's not something we saw a lot of manufacturers doing. It was an interesting choice. And one thing to note about these do charge with micro USB. Let me see if I can find this one. Yep, right here. And these, the micro USB port is over here on this side up under one of these little flaps. Fortunately, this one still has that. I'll go ahead and check the others. That one is intact. And this one still has its flap as well. Now let's talk about these legendary devices here. This is the Nokia Engage QD. I got this one from a trade with Tony from Tony's Phone Collection a while back. He had sent me a bunch of devices, and this one does indeed work. I'm quite impressed to have one of these in the collection. I would like to get my hands on the original, but this one is definitely a welcome sight. I'm not sure if these had interchangeable faceplates. This one got a little bit of wear on it, but overall, perhaps it was not used that much as the screen is relatively unblemished here. I do wish that I had one of the games for it so that I could test out how this felt to play on. Because if you don't know, this handset was designed for gaming. Now, talking on it was a little bit strange. You would hold it like this to talk on, with this side towards the ear, I believe. It got it the nickname the taco phone, which hopefully if you had one of these, a Bluetooth headset might have been an option if this thing supported Bluetooth, or perhaps some kind of a wired headset that would plug into one of these ports up here, because I'm sure talking on this device would have been quite awkward otherwise. But next up, we have the legendary 3310. Or do we? No, we do not. This is the 3090, the US version. But for all intents and purposes, this is the same device minus which bandwidth it supports. This one is on T-Mobile. Fully functional. Could boot it up and play around a snake on it right now if I wished, but I'm trying to keep this one short and simple. Powers up from this top button up here, like the others we've seen. Charges via a coaxial port. Has terminals to sit in a dock. This one, you can change its faceplates. But this is a legendary device. I got this recently in a lot from Mercari, and it's one of the reasons I purchased the lot. I could not pass up an opportunity to own one of these devices. And now, I'm sure the last thing you guys were expecting, a smartphone. This is a Windows phone. Now, it does not have obvious Nokia branding, but we all know that Nokia and Microsoft were partners for that project, so it only felt right to include this device in this video. Moving on over, I have some bonus devices here. Sadly, these are non-functional. Contrary to the belief that Nokias are immortal, sometimes they do end up at a point where either there is a problem or I can't test them. This one, another Windows phone. I don't have a battery or its back cover. I'm not sure what issues it may or may not have, for I am unable to test it. But seeing as how few of these Windows phones there were, how uncommon it was to see people with Windows phone devices during this time, with Android and iPhone having become the mainstream, it didn't feel right to not include this one. Up next, not sure what model this is, but we don't see many Nokia devices with this full QWERTY keyboard either. I don't have its battery. This one looks like it took a fall. Not sure if it's still functional or not because, again, no battery, can't test it. You guys can look right here and see its model number. Down here, not quite sure what this one is either, but this one is quite a neat little device. It's got this little metallic frame and battery cover, neat blue accents on the keypad. It looks like that one over there, sort of, but perhaps a bit more advanced. But I could not get this one to charge up. I'm not entirely sure exactly what is wrong with it, but it does take, I believe, a slightly smaller coaxial charger. I'm not sure if it will charge by USB. Let's see its little flap here. This is a micro USB. I was unable to get this phone to charge up that way though, so sadly I'm not sure exactly what's wrong there either. It might just need a new battery. And here, some type of earlier touchscreen smartphone. Not sure what's going on with my lighting here, guys. I do apologize. But this one, a similar story. I don't have its battery. I will try to, or rather, I do have a battery for it, but I can't get it to charge up. Perhaps it just needs a new battery. Perhaps something is wrong with its charging port, which is also micro USB there, so not unheard of for it to have issues with that. But overall, very interesting device and quite a shame that I can't get it to power on. And with that, that concludes my collection of Nokias. Thank you guys for watching. I'll be posting another poll soon so we can see who gets to go next. Until then, this is RetroComms signing off.